Hello Internet, welcome back to our mall whatever playthrough. I'm back streaming again after a fair hiatus, I guess. I really ought to be making Cataclysm content. It's kind of my bread and butter, what everybody knows me for, wants to watch me for, so yeah, I guess we're going to be playing some Cataclysm. Really don't want to play Cataclysm, really haven't been feeling it lately. And with stuff in my personal life, I really haven't been wanting to record anything at all, but you know, sometimes I think, I don't know, obviously I have some mental health things that most people don't have to deal with, but like I know a lot of people aren't always excited to go to work and they do it anyway, so that's kind of the attitude I'm trying to take. So, we're in this mall. We have a cudgel. We have some basic leather gear, but not anything exceptional. We do have a military rucksack. Oh yes, and I'm on my creaky chair. I don't know if I've mentioned that. My chair broke last week, and I don't really have money to buy a new chair, so we're with the creaky chair for the time being. Hopefully it's not too obtrusive in the video. So I think we've largely cleared the mall, but we will go out and continue trying to do so. I also think we're probably pretty light on beverages, so I think we should look into securing something to drink. We have some coffee. It's not really what I'm looking for. That appears to be it. Some whiskey. Yeah, we should secure a drink here. Do you have a pot on the stove? We do. So all we need to do is find some toilets. Do we have any big jugs? Probably not, right? Probably not a lot of gallon jugs. We will empty this jug of cooking oil. Now, normally I would save cooking oil, but, oh yes, and they've added the sealed versus sealed containers, which is something that I recently noticed. I don't really know if it's on everything or not or how that works, but normally I would save the oil, but since we're in the mall, we're going to be leaving the mall and we're not going to be able to carry everything with us, and a gallon jug is pretty voluminous, so we would end up leaving that behind anyway. So let's find ourselves some toilets. Wo ist die Toilette? Où est la toilette? I don't know where. They're around. We'll find them. I think if you kind of wander the back corridors, there's like larger bathrooms. I don't know if we've seen them already or not. There's a toilet over here. Here's a series of toilets in a store. Do mall shops generally have public toilets like that? I don't think they do, typically. Pop in here, fill our jug, pour into container. We'll get back to it here. Okay, just baby steps, you know. Baby steps in the game. Nice German. No, probably not. It's like the first thing you learn in most languages is like, where's the toilet? My name is. Like, you know, that kind of, how are you? That sort of stuff. I don't know. I can't think of any other languages. I even struggled to try and remember what the French was, and I know quite a lot of French. We need wood. Oh, we don't have anything to put our water in now that once we cook it. What do we have in the way of, do we have any glass jars? No. Everything else is going to be small. We haven't found like bottled water or anything. I feel like we saw a shop that had big jars in it, but I also don't really think... We saw a bar. Didn't we see a bar? It would have alcohol. Let's go grab some big glass bottles from the bar to put our water in. It's like the first thing you learn in most languages. Most people start learning the really basic stuff. I really never learned very much German. I took French for years in school, and am continually disappointed at how little of it I actually remember, because I really enjoyed French. French made a lot of sense to me, Like German, when I was learning, like again, I barely know any German at all, but when I was trying to learn a little bit of German, it was very odd because like in German, every E is pronounced. Like in English, if there's an E at the end of the word, you don't pronounce the E. Like name in English versus Name in German, or however you say it, you pronounce that E on the end. And that's always something that has really thrown me. So like German didn't make sense to me, but French made a lot of sense to me. It just sort of worked, and now I just remember little pieces and whatever. And like I used to know so much French. I don't know, probably because I'm older and haven't used it in 15 years would be my guess as to why I don't remember any of that. But I liked French a lot actually. Oh yeah, French numbers make a lot of sense. I mean, it seems like most other languages are like something plus something, like when you kind of puzzle it out. But French actually has like that multiplication kind of aspect to it. 91, nah, 420s and 11. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. What about Spanish? I actually don't know basically any Spanish, which is interesting as well because I live in an area that has a very high population of people from Mexico. So like we have a lot of Spanish speakers in the area, and I just never really learned. Um, it never really interested me. It seemed too easy. Like not easy. It seemed too practical, and I wanted to learn a language that was like not everyone spoke it and such. So like when I was in school, it was French or Spanish was all we had to offer. I chose French because Spanish is like I thought everyone would learn Spanish because everyone speaks Spanish, so it's like super relevant and really helpful to know Spanish. So I was like, no, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna learn French. So I took French for years, and then when I graduated, I started learning. I still wanted to learn a language, but I was kind of bored with French. And I was like, well, what's the hardest language? And everything I Googled said Russian and English were very difficult. So I was like, all right, I'm going to learn Russian, I guess. And then didn't get very far because I just didn't have the drive to really learn. Because it is a lot of memorization. It is kind of a big thing to learn a language. It's not like something you just do over the weekend, right? So I just gradually lost interest and then never followed through. I never followed through on anything. Oh, that's right. It's because the planks are so big, not because our inventory is so full. It's because planks are huge now. I forgot. Gonna dump those in the fire. We are pretty low on matches, but we really do need to secure some beverages. So we've emptied our bottles. We have a gallon jug of water. I don't know how many portions a glass bottle holds. 750 milliliters, that's 3 portions of liquid. So we have enough for 12. So let's go ahead and make 12 clean waters. And we'll do that. And it's very slow. And I can hear my computer working up. So I might maybe have too much stuff running on the computer and everything is slow. Or maybe it's just taking a long time. Looks like it takes longer than it used to. Use it or lose it. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Pour in a container, glass bottles. Spanish is really useful. Yes, it is like I think the number 2 language in America. I gotta assume what else would it be? No, don't pour it on the ground. Pour it in a container. Like I can't think of anything else that would even come close to rivaling Spanish in America as a dominant language. I mean, English obviously, but so yes, Spanish very useful. I just didn't want to learn because I'm a contrarian, and so many of my kids, like in my school, were learning Spanish. I just wanted to be different because I'm a contrarian. I still am. We are lightly weary. Yeah, we're gonna have to keep an eye on that. And it was a big thing. Also, I grew up in a dominantly white and Hispanic area. In high, that's not true at all. I actually grew up in a dominantly African American area. But like once I got into high school, I was living here, which is primarily a white population. With, like I said, people from Mexico would be the second largest largest group in my high school. And there were so many kids who took Spanish but were doing it and being racist and making fun of, because like there's a very strong presence of people in my area who do not like Mexican immigrants. And so the halls of my high school were filled with these idiot country white boys who were going around saying things in Spanish to mock Spanish speaking people. Like that's apparently why they were trying to learn. Language is mandatory, and I just always felt like that's the memory I have. I just remember them laughing about things, and I remember them going around and like yelling mucho gusto and things, just kind of in a mocking way. I don't know how to explain it, but it always made me feel weird about Spanish. That's like my experience in high school with Spanish language. Estonian is way harder. I remember an internet clip of, I think, Estonian, where they were asking some women how to say, I want to say it's like 6 o'clock or something like that. And it sounds very similar to an English phrase that you would not want a young lady to say, but that's the only experience I can think of. I'm pretty sure that was Estonian. It's the only thing I can think of, and I'm not going to say what they were saying. Did we loot this library, or did we just sort of look at it? The Adorkable Girl. What a lovely name for a book. That's a good name, whoever came up with that. Anyway, those things are downers. Let's not talk about those things anymore. Don't want to get into an argument about Spanish. I mean, okay. Learned English by myself while everyone else was learning it in school. I've heard that English is a very difficult language for non-native speakers. I'm always impressed when I meet people. Like, I don't want to call people out, but like, I know Jack is not a does not speak English as the first language, and I'm always impressed when I meet people who can speak English, because I have heard how difficult the language is, and because I'm from America, and in America most people don't. We forgot our cudgel, so let's just lure him through the floor. We should go back and get our cudgel. I'm always really impressed when I meet someone who can speak English, because it's like, in America, no one knows a second language. It's pretty rare. The average, or I should say the average person, does not know more than English. Whereas, like, we had an exchange student in high school who I do actually think he was from Sweden, now that I'm thinking about it. But he spoke like 5 languages, and he was like 16, and that kind of stuff blows my mind at how important it is, apparently, in other countries to learn multiple languages, and in our country, we offer language in school, but it's not something that most people really take advantage of, and it's generally a limited selection. I remember in high school, my girlfriend went to a different school, and they had to petition the school to get them to teach them German, because they wanted to learn German, but the school only offered French and Spanish, so it's always pretty limited. And of course, if you live in a European country, you are surrounded by generally multiple other countries that have different languages going on, so it's something that is more practical for you to know, whereas here it really is just English and Spanish. I guess probably if you went up north far enough, you probably would get some French from, like, depending on what coast you're on and with Canada and stuff. But for the most part, we're an English-speaking nation, and that's all we bother to learn. Why should we learn someone else's language? That's the attitude I hear. It's from people in my area, because like I grew up with a lot of like Hispanic people in the area, and there was definitely the attitude of like, and you hear it, and it's like a cliche of America sometimes, and this kind of white trash attitude, but people are like, if you're going to live here, you should learn my language. Why should I learn your language? And it's just needlessly antagonistic, in my opinion, but, you know, whatever. Can't tell people what to think or how to feel, I guess. Just going to cudgel this dude. We really would like to avoid fighting, I think probably would be in our best interest, given that we're lightly weary, but also... And even, what is this shop? What am I fighting over? Oh, it's like the military surplus kind of shop. So we definitely do want to come in here. Let's pulp these corpses. Yeah, let's deal with this guy first. Oh, there's 2 of you. You know, let's Let's just bolt out the front door and let them come out here and fall through the floor. Come on, lads and lasses. Just would like you to teeter over a railing in front of me would be lovely. Really would like to avoid sprinting as well, if possible. What we got in chat? I wanted to be different, took German instead of Russian, failed it hard. Yeah, it sounds really bad phonetically. Oh, yeah. English is hard if you don't practice or get hands-on experience. I think that is key for whatever language that you're learning. Like, when I think back to French, the best way that I learned was actually speaking. Like, we would do written examples and we would do, like, grammar and stuff. But the best stuff that I learned was me talking to my teacher in French and actually having someone to practice with and correct me and things like that. I think that's really key in any language. My mentor spoke Italian, and he learned Italian there was a restaurant owner here who owned a pizza joint, and he would spend all day talking to this guy in Italian. That's how he basically learned a lot. He would do work on his own, but that hands-on experience was like the number one thing. And then, of course, in French class, they eventually went on a trip to France, which I couldn't afford, so I didn't go. Yeah, we grew up poor, but like they went, and that was like the key turning point. Like, you could tell who came back and was like, okay, I'm in it now for the rest of my career to learn French, because I had all this experience. I was there, I lived it, I was immersed in it. I think that's really key to learning a language. Thank you, Murder. I'll take that as a compliment. I mean, it's impressive when people. I've heard English is really hard. I write, and I find myself struggling with. Sometimes I go to edit my novel, and I'll use like a army helmet's pretty great. Put that on. Editing my novel, I'll use like a grammar checker, and you'll get this stuff, and it'll be like, oh, this is the past participle of this language. And it's like, it's just really technical, dense stuff, because that's what you expect from a grammar editor. But like, I don't know all the nitty-gritty of English grammar. I constantly talk like an idiot. And when I write, a lot of times it's like these nonsensical, lengthy things that need heavy editing, but I enjoy the process of telling a story, so I generally stick it out. But like, I can't imagine, like, I would never feel comfortable. I took years of French in school. I would never feel comfortable speaking to a French person, because I would be so embarrassed and worried that my English was bad or my French was bad. So like, I'm always really impressed when I meet people who like can hold a conversation, especially so like those of you who are watching me right now on Twitch. I have a tendency to talk pretty quickly, and I don't enunciate very well. So like, I'm always impressed when people can handle that. Like I watch Northern Lion. His wife is Korean. She will frequently watch, he talks about her watching like Korean YouTubers and stuff, and he's been learning Korean, and he's like, he cannot keep up. People talk too fast in the videos for him to understand. And it's like, I don't know if I couldn't do it. You know how fast people talk in their native language? It's crazy. And you're trying to, in your head, translate what they're saying as they're saying it. And I remember, I think it was Antonio Banderas, I saw an interview where he said, of course, he was a native Spanish speaker. He learned a different language, and I don't remember what the language was, and then he learned English from his second language. So in order for him to understand what someone was saying in English, he would translate it to the middle language in his head, then translate that to Spanish. And he would do all of that in the middle of a conversation, which is baffling to me, how someone could actually do something like that. How full is our inventory? About half. Let's peek in here. Looks like an electronics shop. Oh, maximum I can understand is 4 language, speak maybe 3. I mean, that is not to crap all over Americans, but that is far and away better than most people in America. Grab this screwdriver set for sure. And like I said, I think part of it is just a lack of necessity. We don't really have the immigrant population that, like, I know in the EU, being able to travel between countries and work within different countries and things like that, I think it makes it much more necessary to understand a few other languages. Plus, I think the education there is just better and more focused on those sort of things. So, because it's always Europeans. When I talk to people and they know like 5 languages, it's always someone from like Germany or something kind of centrally located where there's all those different countries all around it. So, I don't know. But anyway, didn't mean to ramble about language for 20 minutes, but I am fascinated by language. I think phrases are interesting. Learning the history and the origin of expressions, I think, is really fascinating. But like grammar, that kind of stuff, does not interest me. I hate grammar. And I say that as someone who writes all the time, but I don't write very well. I mostly just tell stories and then do a lot of editing. So, I don't know. Language is cool. Like when I was learning German, I don't know if this is true. It was in a workbook. It said that in German, if you were to call someone lucky, you would say, like, I'm not good at the German inflection, so bear with me as I say this in excruciatingly English tone. But it would be Schweinhaven, like Schweinehaben, I guess, which apparently literally translates to having a pig, is how they would say you were lucky. And I don't know if that's true or not. Correct me in chat, Germans. And then in French, there was an expression, mon petit chouchou, which was like, kind of like how, we might in English call a loved one like pumpkin or sweetheart or something like that. And it meant my little cabbage. And it's just such a peculiar, like, where do these things come from? That's the kind of stuff that really interests me about language. English is very useful, but statistics say Chinese is spoken more. Is that true? Is that based on population? Because it seems like everyone. I mean, but I'm an American, so like my experiences are obviously limited by that. I bet I bet more nations. I don't know. Chinese is and there are people like on Discord who are talking about learning Chinese and things like that. And I grew up with a girl and her father, excuse me, who both spoke a lot of Chinese or Mandarin specifically. I guess it was Mandarin, but like I never tried to learn Chinese. I never really had an interest in that area. Like most anime nerds, I at some point toyed with the idea of learning Japanese, but that's the only language from that kind of area that I've ever bothered to learn. I can't think of anyone. I've met people from Korea, but I've never actually really interacted with them about their language or anything like that. I've, again, pretty limited experiences, and I think part of that is just being an American and not having a lot of the. Like, the only reason I even was around people who spoke like Mandarin and Chinese was because my mentor worked a lot with local like Chinese buffets. He would do sound systems and stuff for the restaurants. And then they would really like us and we would interact on a personal level. So like, we would go to a guy's house because he worked at the restaurant and he'd be like, hey, would you, come over and set up my sound system? So we'd go to his house and he'd like was very nice, and I remember he made us like a duck and stuff and was like just a cool dude, and we hung out a little bit, as just normal dudes. And that's really the only experiences I've had with Asian culture. I grew up with a girl whose father ran one of those Chinese buffets. He was a chef, really cool guy, but I've had very limited experience. Like I said, my area currently is like 99% Caucasian. There's my family who are dominantly African American, and then there's a sizable Mexican population at this point. And there's one Armenian dude that I used to know who lived down the block. But like there's not a lot of diversity in the area that I live. I feel weird even talking about it. It makes me feel uncomfortable talking about that kind of stuff. Like I use the term Mexican, and in my area that is like a derogatory. People will tear others down and use that word against them, but by definition they are people who are here from Mexico, so I don't think it's wrong to say that. But because I grew up the way I did and was around so many racists, it kind of taints the way the word sits with me. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. Anyway, I'm getting hoarse already. Let me take a drink here. Well, that's great. My mute did not trigger. Why did you not trigger? I really don't want people hearing me drink. Well, that's not great. I don't know why it's not muting my microphone. Give me technical difficulties. Give me a moment. Actually, I'll have to do this off camera. This is a terrible thing to do on camera. Really important. I can mute my microphone though, for coughs and sneezes and whatnot. English is a very practical language. I tell people that if you know at least a little bit of English, you can survive anywhere. Very useful to know. When I was abroad, there's a thing where your thinking switches languages. It takes a few days, but makes speaking a lot easier because you don't translate in your head. You're good at a language when you can explain what you mean when you don't remember the word. Mexicans are Latinos themselves, call each other so. I mean, again, it's just one of those things that I don't really know the appropriate language for. So, like, I grew up in a family that is dominantly African American. However, my family has never used the term African American. No one around us ever used the term African American. I grew up in a neighborhood and family that is a quote-unquote black family, but I'm a white guy, so when I say things like that, I'm always a little bit uncomfortable because I feel like, some people will take offense to that sort of language, and I really don't want to offend anyone. And it's obviously not my intention to do so, but I do think there are people who just get triggered off of stuff like that. So in general, I try to avoid talking about it. But then again, I don't really try to avoid talking about anything. I guess I end up talking about whatever I want, and it's usually mildly harmful to my content. Unfortunately, dead ends here. We really don't want to dive into the store because there will be zombies in here. Really don't want to double back because they're going to be hitting me, but honestly, doubling back, they're going to hit me less than if I stood and fought them. So it's just, no, do not crouch. Never crouch. We never crouch in this house. Don't do that. Come back through. I don't know if they can smash the metal doors or not, but we just want to get away from them. We're going to avoid the back hallways. I don't see a huge reason to go back there.